Welcome to the webinar. We've got Craig Davis on the line and Leon Wilson. Craig is the CMO and co-founder of Sendle, a startup in the delivery space. And Craig describes himself as a serial entrepreneur, having started or partnered in up to 11 ventures since university, definitely a creative industry leader. And grew up in some small country towns, says that he was delighted some years later to be living and working all over the world as a chief creative officer for Saatchi & Saatchi Asia, and a few other very impressive names in his bio, which you can read about. He's a very passionate believer in creating satisfying and sustainable business successes, and he does his best to practice what he preaches. Craig, would you like to say a couple of words about yourself and Sendle before we get jumping in?
Yeah, look, we're doing our best at Sendle to take all the friction out of parcel delivery for people, and we're trying to do that in a way that it markets itself essentially to do such a good job and to give people such a good experience that they're happy to tell one another. So even though I've had a 25-year career in advertising, we are trying to build Sendle the business and the brand largely through social reputation.
Good.
And peer review.
Fantastic.
Which is an interesting challenge all on its own.
Yes, I'm sure. And also joining us is Leon Wilson, who at age 30 is a co-director of Revolution Print. So Leon has been in the print industry since 2009, where he previously worked in sales, some repairs of photocopiers, and medical software migration and training. He initially was employed as a helper to assist with moving some commercial, with the moving of a commercial printer, which is called Kingprint and is now Revolution Print. And his journey through Revolution Print has taken him to being one of the directors, and a total switch in how print is sold through the Revolution model. So, Leon, would you like to just say a couple of words about yourself and Revolution Print?
Good morning. Happy International Print Day, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, and you too.
Yes, we moved from a very traditional commercial print shop to forward-thinking, both still offset and digital commercial print shop, but very much in the online game, where starting from 7 years ago, not having any online presence, to now 70% of all our orders now coming through the online space. Alongside with that, the drive of making that process easy with automation and software and different machines to make it a streamlined success, really.
Good, fantastic. Thanks for joining us, both of you. So I'll jump straight into our first question of the day, which is, how did you spot your opportunity or multiple opportunities? Let's start with Craig. How did you spot an opportunity for Sendle?
So Sendle is really a happy accident. Sendle was born out of the failure of another business called TwoShare, which was a sharing platform that made it very easy for people to give things away that they no longer wanted. They could be kids' clothes or toys or kitchen appliances, garden equipment, because we were trying to keep things out of landfill. And to make that marketplace work, we needed a cheap, door-to-door and reliable delivery solution. And when we looked around to see what was available, there was just nothing there that was easy enough and predictable enough for to kind of lubricate that marketplace. And so we built, it was a fairly hacky solution in the beginning, but we built a point-to-point delivery solution that was flat national pricing and carbon neutral, and would pick up literally from Leon's place in Ballarat and deliver it to Perth for the same price that they would pick up from his place in Ballarat and deliver it to Brisbane. So it made it all very easy. What we then realised is that people were starting to hack into TwoShare as this sharing platform just to avail themselves of the delivery solution. So eBay sellers, small e-com vendors were doing that, and we recognised at that point that we'd hit on something quite significant that had a lot of potential. So like a lot of good ideas, they're born out of failure, or there's usually a fair amount of luck or serendipity in the story.
Yeah, you touch on a very important point there, which is a failure or a happy accident. If you're not trying something, you couldn't stumble through that accident or that failure to get to the next loophole or opportunity that might jump out.
Yeah, exactly. If you're too risk averse, if you're too afraid of failing, then you're never going to do anything that you learn from. So it's really important that people get comfortable with the notion of failing.
Yeah, cool. Good point. Leon, do you want to run us through how you spotted the opportunities for Revolution Print?
Sure. Well, I guess the opportunity is the opportunity of survival and setting the business up for the future.
Yep.
There's anyone who calls themselves a print shop should be able to print reasonably well. So print, it's covered, that's fine. But it's how the communication process and how the service and how easy it is for a prospective client to be able to talk to and put in a job to a print shop, which ultimately needed to change, and I still believe needs to change in the future as well. So the opportunity was, how do we make that process for the end user, being the client, as easy as possible, whether they're at-home Google user or commercial business or a designer, the trade market. How the opportunity it was, there's print shops there's online stores, but let's put a face to it as well and bring a service to it too.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Thanks. So the next question is, what's your take on the good enough versus perfect debate? So this is a concept, particularly in the tech space, where they talk about going to market with something that is good enough rather than trying to make it perfect before you launch. Leon, let's start with you, because you come from a print background where perfection of the printed product is pretty much the only thing that's accepted.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, there's 2 points there. There's the perfection of the product and perfection of a system as well.
Yes.
Now, print can only be ever as good as the design or artwork that is provided.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the hardest decisions as a print provider is when you receive a job and identifying when it's acceptable to actually print what's been provided.
Yep.
Or going back to the client and saying you're honestly not going to be happy with the end product. No matter what we do, you can only sprinkle so much glitter on something.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's always going to be that debate of, is the artwork good enough to print or not?
Yeah.
Now, assuming that it is, just like any business, you've only got one chance with the client.
Yeah.
So the system, going back to before the order is placed, needs to be pretty darn good, or else the client's just going to go elsewhere. It's a competitive industry. It's not all about price, it's about ease.
Yeah.
If the system's not easy, not accurate, not straightforward, you've only got one shot. They're not going to use it again.
Okay, cool.
So it has to be as close to perfect as you can get it.
Cool. Craig, what's your take?
Look, I'm not an expert on the print industry, but what I would say is one of the things that I've learned, and I've learned this a few times, and I've learned it painfully and expensively, is that you have to, when you're trying to do something new, when you're innovating, you have to get an early version of that out into the hands of people for whom you think it's going to be valuable. So, because, you're trying to solve a problem for people. Doing that in theory and doing it in practice are very different. So we're great believers in MVP, minimum viable product, and minimum viable process. So figuring out on, making reasonable assumptions around what it is that might address a particular problem for a market, and putting something out there so you're getting real world feedback as quickly, as inexpensively as you can, and starting to iterate and tweak from there. So one of the things that when it gets expensive is when you basically over-engineer a solution and make too many assumptions in the absence of real-world feedback, because a lot of those assumptions are wrong. So in the beginning of Sendle, for example, we developed a whole bunch of features which we were convinced that our users would want. Okay. And as we went forward, we actually decommissioned a lot of those. So they came at great expense. We designed them, developed them, built them. We even have patented IP around some of this technology. But we actually decommissioned a lot of it because it turned out that it wasn't necessary to solve the customer problem. And so where we've kind of got to with this is that it's much better to be to find quick, inexpensive ways of getting to product market fit. It's better to be 100% solution for, say, 80% of the market than a kind of 80% solution for 100% of the market.
Yeah.
And that requires making really tough choices. So if I use a famous example, Uber, which everyone kind of knows about now, you can't pre-book an Uber. If you're going to the airport tomorrow, you can't pre-book an Uber today.
Yes.
You just use the application tomorrow when you want to leave the house. If you've got a baby and you want a baby seat with the car, you can't do that with Uber. Or closer to printing, I'm sure you guys, there might be other examples of this. The only one I'm aware of is Moo Printing in the UK. They've got a very small menu of products, mostly business cards and flyers. That's all they do. But the user experience is so fantastic.
Exactly.
So I almost stumbled across this, but our latest lot of business cards I ordered on Moo because the interface was so fantastic, well aware that they'd come all the way from the UK to us in Sydney, but it was easy, it was affordable, but the menu options were simple. Choice is paralysing for people, and what a lot of businesses do is just offer far too many choices. Making the right decisions about what your part of the market actually requires of you is difficult, but ultimately liberating and far more efficient.
Yep, fantastic. Thanks for that. And we go back.
Yeah, I just want to...
Leon, add on?
I completely agree. You don't have to... There's so many variables in print. You don't have to offer everything. Innovation isn't about doing everything. It's about finding what you're good at and making that as easy as possible. And that Moo example is just a perfect example.
Yes.
And it even eliminates the buy local. It doesn't matter anymore as long as the process is easy and straightforward, and the system is built around that idea. It's a step in the right direction.
Fantastic. Yep. Cool. So next question, why is innovation important? I would suppose in general and also in the industry we're talking about. I'll start, I think, with Craig, just because you've innovated in an industry that's fairly standard and hasn't really been disrupted for a long time, the delivery industry. So, maybe just chat with us a bit about why you think it's so important for an industry such as this to have some innovation and some disruption.
Well, look, I think that wherever there's complacency, there's opportunity, and wherever things have been sort of going along uninterrupted for a while, there's probably a lot of things that need to be turned over. The real reason for wanting to pursue innovation is not to be disruptive, but it's about to bring value to the marketplace, to bring a better proposition, a better product, a better service to the marketplace. It's only innovation if customers say so. Otherwise, it's just kind of a wacky idea or a waste of time. And so, for us, we look at innovation as an ongoing part of what we need to do. It's not a thing. It's not a noun. It's not something that you point to. It's a process.
Yeah.
And that process is about creating value and creating, certainly for us, progress. So, we're kind of greenies. We're into sustainability. We're the only carbon neutral delivery service, for example, and that's important to us because our view of innovation going forward is that much of it needs to be far more efficient, socially efficient, efficient for all stakeholders, but socially efficient for employees, efficient for customers, efficient environmentally. And so one of the challenges now is that while people have always thought that, for example, being environmentally responsible should come at a premium, the opportunity is to innovate and deliver, say, a cleaner, greener solution and to do it cheaper. So, and that's when innovation starts to get real traction. So I go back to Uber, for example. Uber's not just better, but it's cheaper. Airbnb is, arguably better because it's more eclectic and more personal and has more character, and it's generally cheaper than a hotel. And likewise with Sendle, we are 100% carbon offset and a whole bunch of other stuff too, and a certified B Corporation. And by and large, we are also cheaper than the alternatives and usually significantly cheaper for the alternatives in our part of the market. So I think that there's a big opportunity for the print industry and in most industries for people to combine those things and for customers not to have be paying a premium for it, but to actually get a discount.
Cool. Leon, thoughts on that? Why is innovation important? And touching on what Craig has said. Hello? I think we've lost Leon. Oh dear. Guys, can
Leon fell off the call.
Yeah. Let me just add him back in. And add to call. Hi, Leon.
Back. Sorry, something happened.
No worries. Did you catch the end of that thing? Where did you drop off?
Dropped off right when Craig was starting to talk.
Oh, no.
It was hilarious, Leon.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Okay, so the question we asked was, why is innovation important? And Craig, touched on Sendle, what they've done in their industry, and then also mentioned, he thinks that there's an opportunity there for print, for innovation, and seeing innovation as an action rather than a goal or an end point. It's not a noun. It's something that you're always doing. So onto the question, which is, why is innovation important from your perspective, Leon? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we've only seen the beginning of it. I reckon there's going to be some really smart, disruptive technology in print within the next 3 to 5 years, whether that's collaboration with social media platforms or the Uber of print or the Tesla of print. Who knows? I reckon there's something around the corner that's really going to disrupt the industry. And I think the word disruptive, which you've used a couple of times, is the innovation.
Yeah. As
our economy is changing, and technology and apps and software, the print industry needs to as well to simply stay alive. But then to make life easier internally for the print industry, and easier for the expectations of our clients as well.
Yep. Cool. Okay, so here's a question. Why do you think it's so hard to innovate? Leon, let's start with you.
Yeah, it's such a diverse industry. There are so many options. There's so many types of print. Nothing is standard, and nothing is cheap either.
Yeah.
And it's stuck in a little bit of a rut as well. So the forward thinkers move into other industries. So it is hard to gain the momentum. It takes time, it takes resources, it takes money, and those are three things that there's not many in the industry have.
Yeah.
A lot of they're just surviving rather than trying to innovate. But I think it's more a change of thinking to begin with before innovation can take place.
Yep. Cool. Craig, your thoughts on that?
So, look, why is it so hard, Steph? I think there's a few things to that. So, number one, I would say it's really hard because it's an ongoing process. So people talk about innovation a lot as if it's a thing they must do. They'll get a few people wrapped around a problem and they'll do it for a week or a month.
Yeah.
But it's actually an ongoing process. So culturally, that requires a massive shift for people to actually embrace that. So that's number one. Number two, it requires a tremendous amount of listening and learning. So innovation is, it starts with deeply understanding what your customers or some part of the market are experiencing currently. So, a lot of people think innovation is just about problem solving. The problem is that you often don't know what the problem is that must need to be solved. So you've got to do a lot of listening. You've got to keep your ears to the ground, your eyes open, and you've got to actually set a lot of your assumptions and experience aside in order to genuinely empathise with a market segment. And the last part is that failures are inevitable, and so a lot of people get on kind of the innovation bus, and then at the first sign of failure or trouble, they jump off again and they go, well, that didn't work. But actually, you've got to accept that failures are an inescapable and actually necessary part of getting to anything good. So I'll give you a couple of examples that aren't a million miles away from the print industry. So Canva, C-A-N-V-A, Canva, is a massive Australian-born cloud-based success story for the design industry, which has basically enabled a whole bunch of small businesses all around the world, literally millions, they have millions of subscribers, to bypass graphic designers largely and create their own social media assets, their own artwork for flyers and posters. I'm sure some of this stuff is coming your way because people want to have it printed. They want it in physical form. But the actual creation of the artwork has been radically changed around this particular innovation. So there's one that's, closely aligned to the print industry. Here's another one that's in the communication space and not a million miles away from print. A New Zealand-born but Australian-based company called 90 Seconds, who have built a cloud-based platform for video production. So instead of going to a traditional video production house and getting a video made, so the parallel here with printers is or the analogy with printers is reasonable, I think. You don't do that. You go straight to a cloud platform and you tell them what you're looking for. You specify the brief, and they provide people to help solve this problem. So the whole process is now cloud-based. The pre-production process, the casting process, the editing process, the sound tracking process, graphics, the whole thing is now sits on a cloud-based platform, and they've made tens of thousands of videos already on this platform. So there's two examples of pretty radical innovation in industries or areas that aren't a million miles away from the print industry, but where they've started by accepting that they won't get it right first time. It's an ongoing process, and they have to deeply understand what the issues are in the industry rather than just paint around the outside. So it does require a lot of letting go of the assumptions and the things that have made you successful so far, and often letting go of the experience that has been so valuable and hard won to date. You have to put those things in perspective in order to embrace entirely new ways of thinking.
I think that point that you've made about letting go is very, very pertinent in the printing industry. I'm sure, Leon, you'll agree with me. There are a lot of printers out there that are managing okay, but they have years of experience behind them, and letting go of that is such a hard emotional and mental shift. Some of them just can't do it. They just can't do it.
Embracing and accepting change.
Yes.
To begin with.
Yes.
It's probably the hardest.
Yep. I would say that's probably very, very true. Alrighty.
Especially if you've been in the industry for a long period of time. To accept that the business can no longer be run the way it used to be run is very hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. Alrighty, next question is, who is your influencer, or if not an influencer, if you don't like that term, who motivates you or who inspires you? Leon, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to go pretty standard.
Yeah.
Elon Musk at the moment.
Cool, another Safa. I love it.
Talk about thinking outside the square, more like thinking outside this earth.
Yeah.
The impossible is not impossible anymore.
Yep.
So, the answer no longer exists.
Yeah.
So, watching his videos and his interviews and even the way that he answers the questions, and is just convinced solely within himself that all these things are possible. That's pretty motivating.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Craig?
Look, for me, I would. The honest answer is lots of people. I think I was always one of those kids who found, growing up in a country town, anyone who came to the school and spoke about anything, I found them massively inspiring. So if it was the local bank manager or it was the guy who ran the abattoir in the next town, I was kind of like wide-eyed and awestruck. And when they said at the end, "Hey, so who wants to work here?" I'd put my hand in the air. So.
Yep.
I could easily have been a fireman or a bank manager, I suppose. But the honest answer now is who inspires me. The people I work with. I mean, I have the privilege of working with an insanely bright bunch of people who are not only really bright but really good, emotionally intelligent people. Like really good-hearted, humble, honest, happy, hungry, high achieving. Those are the 5 things we look for in the company, and so everyone who works here are those things. They're tremendously inspiring. Other source of inspiration are my kids. So my kids are kind of, they're 3 teenagers. They don't talk to me that much, but I kind of watch and learn from them. I find that tremendously inspiring. And then the third is a guy called Bob Isherwood, who was my first boss when I went to Saatchi & Saatchi's years ago. And I'm still in touch with Bob, and I regard him as a friend. Bob's probably 75. He teaches at university in the US. He's just had one of those open and inquiring minds all the many years that I've known him, and he's kind of living proof that as you get older, you needn't get boring and that you needn't get stuck in your ways. And so I've always looked to Bob as this tremendously positive, optimistic, and curious person who's something, I think, of a role model for us all.
Fantastic. Some nice things there. Cool. Question 6. I would suppose this goes more towards Leon with your experience, but Craig, weigh in, where you think you could. How can an established business find funds to innovate? You touched on it in one of the previous questions that it's hard to innovate sometimes because people feel like they don't have the cash on hand to fund it. So where would you say, Leon, how can an established business find funds to innovate and to create that change?
Yeah, I was thinking about this again this morning, and it's not all about money. Yeah. It's about attitude. I think it starts with attitude. Mm-hmm. And you don't need funds for attitude. The way a business, a print business who wants to be innovative can run, can really just start with an attitude. Okay, good. The communication, the process, how things are done internally and externally, quality, communication, and from that, then you can start innovating. It's not about buying software. It's not about buying machines. Yeah, that can help with innovations, but the getting right back to the soul of the business and thinking long and hard about what you're good at doing, focusing on that, and then finding a way of either doing the other stuff or passing the other stuff onto someone else where you can still make a buck or two, and really focusing on attitude, on service and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But then when it comes to the funds, I think for some small businesses there is grants out there to innovate. Having said that, I haven't looked too far into that. Yep. But innovate internally first. Gain control, learn your finances, learn the profit on the actual profit on jobs, and learn how the business is actually operating, and do your own calculations. Yep. Right back to finding out about your business and knowing your business before you can actually take those steps to innovate. Okay. Yeah, it's not easy. We self-funded all our innovations and almost went bankrupt doing it. But you just got to back yourself. Yes. But you didn't. And if you believe. And that's that important step of that, taking that calculated risk of knowing that it's better on the other side and just believing that it would be. Yep. 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 Mm. But, it's a risk, but it's not so much a risk if you know your business and can gain control again.
Cool.
Yeah.
Craig, any thoughts to add on that?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, Steph, what I would say is that I understand that very often one of the roadblocks is around, budget or resources, which is, time, money, those sorts of things, particularly in small businesses where people are just kind of running at a million miles an hour and spinning a lot of plates. But I would say it starts with a mental shift.
Yeah.
And one of the things, back to being open and curious, I think, very often around innovation, the stimulus or the inspiration or the ideas that are going to lead you down that path, that they're going to come from surprising industries or sources. And so, there's a lot of research around this now, but the single biggest predictor of success is the diversity of your network. And so one of the problems I would imagine in the print industry, like any industry, like dairy farmers or, the advertising industry that I was in for a long time, and it used to frustrate me, is that everything gets self-referential very quickly. People start looking at each other and asking each other what their issues are, what their problems are, and how they're solving them. And that's got some value, but actually more valuable generally is to get outside your industry and outside the network that you're familiar with and ask other people what problems they've got in their industries and how they're solving them. Because that's where breakthroughs come from. The intersection of these different networks, at the edges of your networks where they intersect with other networks, is usually where the richest and most radical source of learning comes from. So to adopt that attitude is free. That doesn't cost anything to do that. So while I think it's really great that the print industry gets together and talks about this stuff, I think it's also super important that people get deliberately away from the print industry and drop themselves into other conversations and find other stimulus to draw on, and then and find ways of bringing that back inside the business. And so to that extent, it's not a department's job. But I think the other mistake that companies often make is they go, hey, you, Bruce, over there, you're a smart bloke. Why don't you head up this innovation thing for us? And poor Bruce, no matter how smart he is, it's just never going to work.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of putting it on top of, because number one, he's the guy who's tasked with it, and number two, he's got other things to do in his day. It needs to be everyone's job. So cultivating that openness and that curiosity and that hunger to learn from outside your industry is massively important. Yeah. And that's where it starts. So, so far you haven't spent any time or money.
Yep. Leon?
It's a complete culture shift.
Yes. Moving everyone in a different direction. Great.
Yep, and picking yourself up.
Yes.
Because it's so easy to get back into the regular shift.
Yeah.
Picking yourself up and reminding yourself
over and over.
Over and over and over again, and leading by example as well.
Yeah.
Well, you need diversity in the team. You really do. If you believe innovation is important, if it's important to survival or success, then you have to get diversity into the team, into the mix. So if I think about Sendle for the as an example, and I just think about the three founders, so James and Sean and myself. James's background is as an electrical engineer. He's put satellites in space. That's where he started. So nothing to do with logistics or parcel handling or warehousing. Sean is a software developer. He's been developing military software, amongst other things. Again, nothing to do with logistics or supply chain. And my background is advertising and marketing, and I've basically touched everything you can think of in my career, except, frankly, logistics and supply chain.
Yeah.
So, the three of us came to this. As I said, there's a certain amount of serendipity in how we end up doing this, but there's a tremendous amount of experience in other areas that we have brought to this particular set of problems.
Cool.
And, of course, we've got people around us who know a lot about logistics, but it's kind of the reverse of most models, where if you wanted to start a software business pointed at logistics, you would start with people who were expert in the logistics field.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm not saying that we're perfect, we're far from it, but we're kind of an example of this, the importance of this diversity and bringing fresh perspectives into problems so that you can address them differently.
Cool. Very cool. Okay, so now more into some more light-hearted questions and more focused on print, because it is an International Print Day. So, Craig, tell us, what's your favourite book and why that book?
Okay, sure. Well, look, I've got a couple of books for you. One I would recommend, I used to buy this in bulk. I used to buy like 50 of them at a time and give them to people who I'd come across who I felt needed it. So there's a book called A Technique for Producing Ideas, and it's written by a guy called James Webb Young. It will take you an hour to read it. It's about 50 pages long.
Yeah.
It's a little kind of A5-ish book. It was written in 1944 on a Sunday afternoon by James Webb Young, and it's brilliant because basically no matter what area you're in, you could be in printing or painting, poetry, songwriting, you could be a novelist, an architect, a designer. Basically what he's done is he's identified 5 stages of the creative process to solving any kind of problem. And the first stage is basically, as we've been discussing, is sucking up inspiration from everywhere in your life. Just being curious and pulling all that together. It was written so long ago, he talks about keeping kind of a shoebox and writing things on note cards in alphabetical order. So this is, there was no technology around that was the available technology of the day. But it's such a brilliant book. And on page 15 from memory, or 16, he talks about the definition of an idea, which to this day is the best working definition of an idea that I've ever heard, which is that an idea is nothing more or less than a new combination of existing elements. And so while we talk about innovation, and that's a big, long word, and maybe it's a bit confounding for most people, the idea that innovation is really just an idea that's a new combination of existing elements, and it's an idea that obviously works for a particular segment of the market, is just beautifully simple. So I completely recommend that book.
Fantastic.
And if you want something else to read The Shepherd's Life by James Rebanks, which is, I just finished his brilliant bit of non-fiction about a guy whose family's been shepherds in the Lake District in England for the last 600 years.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. Leon, what's your favourite books to recommend?
I'm 30, so I don't read many books. But you can do some psychoanalysis or whatever you want on these 3 titles, which I've just purchased recently. Yep. Kurt Fearnley, Pushing the Limits. Yep. He's the Australian Paralympic marathoner. Yeah. That book will make you smile, cry, laugh, and just it's an incredible. He's an incredible person to begin with, but well worth the read.
Fantastic.
Really, really good.
Cool.
And here's a good one. You'll probably like this, Steph, I think. Yeah. Adam Spencer's World of Numbers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it is. The way he can explain maths and just numbers in general is really amazing. Awesome. He's just got a brain that can decipher technical talk and bring it into anyone's language and make it interesting. Really cool. And another one I've just recently purchased as well is Ando, The Happiest Refugee. I'm really looking forward to reading that.
I've heard some good things about that from a few people, actually, the Ando. Yeah.
Seeing him in the media and listening to him and everything, there's a story behind him. Yeah. And you can just tell he's such a grateful, beautiful, beautiful person. I just want to know more about him.
Cool.
But I listen to a lot of podcasts as well.
Yeah.
Of course you do. Comedian Will Anderson, which we just printed a job for him recently, actually. Oh. He's got a great one called Willosophy.
Oh.
And he actually had Kurt Fearnley on it and Adam Spencer as well, to be honest.
Okay.
But he's got some really interesting interviews on there that are, they're funny because he's a comedian, but it really go in deep into they're different mindset of philosophy. One of his first was with Todd Sampson, who's on the TV at the moment, doing that body hack show on Channel 10 or Win, I think it's called now. Really, really worth a listen.
Okay, cool, thanks. Alrighty, so Leon, you'll probably be able to answer this. I don't know, maybe Craig you will. You've been in advertising. In terms of colour, are you a CMYK person or a Pantone person, and why?
Did we skip a question?
We did. Let's just go back.
Hardcover, softcover books?
Oh, I switched them around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
Sorry,
right.
yep.
Sorry.
No, that's all good. Colour, so CMYK or Pantone, and why?
CMYK all the way for me. Pantone, I see it as old school.
Okay.
Sorry. Colour matching and industry standard profiles and everything should make CMYK relatively easy to set up and make accurate. And because we're in a world of automation and innovation, there is only so much you can automate when it comes to Pantone.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Where you can automate as till the cows come home with CMYK.
Cool. I like that. Craig, any thoughts?
Look, I don't really... Whatever looks best.
That's a nice diplomatic answer. I like that. Cool. Righty. And then, so do you like hardcover books, soft cover books, or magazines? What's your preference? Craig?
I'm a paperback person.
Okay.
So look, the reason is I like to be able to jam them in a backpack and not fuss. A hardcover book feels more like a work of art to me, and I don't feel that it's as portable because I feel I need to look after it and just kind of leave it at home and nurse it and take care of it. A paperback feels like they can fling it around a bit more.
They're made for some punishment. I like that. Cool. And Leon?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there too, especially with a 2-year-old boy. Those hardcover ones are really for the top shelf, Yeah. I can only grab them, not you, but especially again, going down the path of automation. Soft cover and magazine styles, because you can do it all in line, or you've got booklet makers that can do all that kind of stuff. Less hands, and using the right stocks, right design can look fantastic as well.
Fantastic. Awesome. And then, Craig, let's go back to you. What's your earliest memory of something printed?
So I have a very clear memory of quite a large-scale piece of printing. So in the late 1960s in New Zealand, my parents had a record store called The Loft, which was on like the 7th floor of a building off Vulcan Lane. So it was a terrible retail environment. People had to walk upstairs to get to go and buy records. But I remember at the age of about 3 or 4, the Beatles were huge, and Mum and Dad had this life-size cutout of the Beatles in the record store. And all I knew was that they were kind of awesome, and everyone who came in wanted a Beatles album. And so I remember sort of hanging out with this cardboard cutout, and I do have a photograph of me as a 3-year-old wearing a cardigan and a bow tie, standing next to the Beatles, which, unless you look at it closely, looks quite convincing. It looks like I actually meet them in their heyday. But
Run with it. You met them.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. I like that one. Leon?
Yeah, that is cool. As Craig mentioned, I was talking to Craig before, I'm a big fan of Jaguar cars.
Yeah.
And as a child, I wrote a letter and sent it to all the dealerships asking for magazines and brochures of their models and everything, and actually got quite a bit of printed material in return. So that comes to mind, as does, of course, at a young age, you collect cards, so Star Wars cards or Pokemon cards or whatever it was back then, and also movie posters too. So three things that come to mind as a I guess under 10-year-old.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. I remember those trading cards. I never had them. My brothers did. But
a silly, expensive hobby.
Yes, and expensive being the word, because my parents never stopped complaining about how much this stuff cost.
Yeah, it's ridiculous looking back.
But of course I stole them because I wasn't allowed to have them as a little girl, but I stole them from my brothers because I am a tech geek. So, you know, they were mine. They were appropriated.
Of course.
Yes, of course.
Well, I've still got mine in the cupboard somewhere. Hoping they're worth something one day.
Yeah, maybe they will be. Maybe they will be. Cool.
Maybe.
Alrighty. So that brings us to the end of the webinar, and just wishing everybody a happy International Print Day. So International Print Day is playing out across a number of social media channels: Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Instagram, and Snapchat as well, the new one. Leon, do you want to just give us a couple of your page handles and which channels you're on where you've posted some information up about International Print Day, or where people can follow you or the company?
Yeah, sure. Well, our website is simply revolutionprint.com.au.
Yep.
And there's links there to both our Facebook page, which you'll be able to find as Revolution Print, and Instagram as well, where I try and put a few cool things up, which is just Revolution Print again.
Awesome.
And a hashtag that I'd like everybody else to start using as well, which I'm just trying to get out there, is I love my printer.
Oh, I love it.
Try and get clients to post their stuff and hashtag I love my printer. I think it turns in really well with this whole International Print Day and recognition of printing in the industry.
Yep.
Let's get a bit of love out there.
I love it.
Into the print world.
I do love it. Cool.
Hashtag I love my printer.
Fantastic. I'll start using that. And Craig, do you want to give us some of the places where people can connect up with Sendle or follow you guys?
Yes, of course. So, look, all people really need to know is Sendle, SENDLE.com. And if you come to Sendle.com and create an account, which will take you about 15 seconds, email, password, you can start sending things straight away. If you contact our support team and mention this podcast, then we'll happily upgrade you to free Sendle Premium. So it'll save you another $1 off every parcel you send and $10 a month in subscription fees.
Fantastic.
So
awesome.
Turn up and we'll look after you.
Awesome. I will definitely put that out there. Cool beans. Thank you, guys, for your time this morning, for participating, and happy International Print Day, both of you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Happy National
Cheers.
Print Day to you too.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.